Good day. This is Group 5. My name is Sarah Gijatmata and I will be our moderator for this session. With me are Clarice Bernal, Riley Hernandez, Rochella Ibay, and Elena Chai. We will be discussing the movie Shoplifters, directed and written by Koreda Hirokazu. The movie primarily follows the lives of a family, living their day to day lives, going to work, and trying to survive in society. It shows how they shoplift for their basic needs and sheds a light on the intricacies of supply and demand. They also show the backstory behind how they came to adopt or rescue two children. This film also shows us the extremities one will go to either save oneself or attain what they desire. The human can be ever so selfish sometimes. With that being said, we can move on to our question of the session. What was your favorite scene in the movie and why? Can we start with Elena?
Well, I wouldn't really say this was my favorite scene, but nonetheless, it stood out to me. So Nobuya, the mom, and a coworker friend were notified by their boss one day that one of them would have to be laid off. And the bad thing about this one is like it was left up to them to settle the matter. But it wasn't really much of an argument. It was settled quick, rather, because her Nobuya's quote unquote friend threatened to snitch on Nobuya taking in Yuri. And so she had no other choice but to concede. And I have nothing but praise for both the actor and the director because of the way the scene was shot. It really made me feel as if I was the one who got betrayed. We could really see how Nobu's expression changed when she realized that after all, this was a dog eat dog world, which, Marx touches upon in Marxism because capitalism often drives people into desperate measures like betrayals. And in the movie, it is portrayed that the family even resorts to adopting children to become accessories of the shoplifting crimes just so they could survive, which is super messed up. Like, sure, as much as they probably saved Shota from the burning car and Yuri from an abusive household, the circumstances they put the children through weren't really all the better. But again, I can't fully blame them because what there's only so much you can do if like that's the only thing you've ever known for like your whole life.
Thank you for that, Elena. The scene that you mentioned about the mother getting laid off is actually also one of my favorite scenes. More so towards the fact that, of course, they were going to let go of one of their senior employees. I also wondered why they would do that considering it's hard to come by loyal and hardworking employees, despite the fact that they were stealing every now and then. But then again, in this scenario, it didn't matter if you were a senior employee or not, and you have all this experience. If your boss only wants money, he'll toss you out to keep his share of the profit. What about you, Chella?
I'd have to say that the scene that stood out to me the most was the one where we see Aki in her work. So, she's essentially a sex worker who caters to her customers through this means that seems to be, um, designed to be impersonal in a way, given the glass partition, and it kind of creates this distance and allows the anonymity of one side. And then there's a specific part where she asks her customer to avail a private room for them because she wants to see his face. And given the nature of her job, we'd expect that the private room was more so that she could perform other things and possibly like charge extra for that. But then we witness something totally different and kind of detached from the reality of their circumstance. So we see the customer looks burdened and he lays his head on her lap, and it's like he craves the company and the comfort that Aki gives. And we also see that Aki kind of craves this deeper connection, not necessarily with that guy, but I feel that it's more general and focused on the concept of that connection than it is with the customer. And I think that we see here the concept of alienation under capitalism, as Aki's work kind of requires her to alienate from herself as she becomes kind of just this product, and for the sake of the service that she provides. um and then this is that scene was like the only time that we do see her deviate from this alienation in search of a more tangible and human connection.
Actually, because of that scene, I really was open to the reality of the extremities of supply and demand. For anything you want or desire, you can find the corresponding service or product for it. If I remember correctly, when Aki and the grandmother were eating out before she had to go to work, the grandmother said something along the lines of, "You get paid just to show side boob." It really sheds light on the other issue that a woman's body can often be seen as a product that can be sold, especially keeping in mind that the setting of the film is in Japan, which is a country notorious for the rumor that the men there are too busy with work to commit to one woman, which is why sex services are very common. Thank you for that, Chella. How about you, Sayan?
Mine is probably the ending scene directly after Osamu admits that they were going to give Shota away when he wasn't useful to them anymore. And he chases after the bus that Shota gets on. It takes a while, but Shota turns around and eventually calls him dad. For me, this symbolized how the relationship broke out of just a use and exchange value that was inherent from Osamu's utterance, and in the end, they were able to see past the commodity fetishized nature of the relationship, remove themselves from ascribing each member to a certain value, and truly see each other as family, no matter how dysfunctional they were, and even if they didn't want to admit it to each other. And this is echoed when Nobuya broke down uh, once the social worker or the interviewer asked what the children had called her during their time together, and if they called her mom, and she simply wondered if they did consider her that way.
That scene is actually how I came to the realization of just how selfish a person can be, especially when they're desperate. Just in the mere fact that they were going to dispose of Shota when he was no longer useful also shows us how, at this point, they didn't see these children as human beings, but as mere moneymakers, yet this treatment seemed to only be applied to Shota at first. Eventually, though, they decided that Churi had to learn to steal so she could earn her spot at the table. Thank you, Cyan. And what about you, Riley?
I think my favorite scene, or rather set of scenes, were when the family was worried about Jury and how they technically kidnapped her. In any other circumstance, we'd think this is wrong, this is not ideal, they're not her real family. But from what we learned in class about Marxism, isn't this just an idea that we need to question? Something that's normal and that we have to ask why it's normal? There was much evidence throughout the film about Jury's circumstance concerning physical abuse and negligent care. For example, the one scene where Jury and Nobuyo were taking a bath and they would compare their scars. Yes, Jury is not their blood daughter. Materialistically and ideologically speaking, she shouldn't belong to their ad hoc family. However, we see in the film that it challenges the very idea of what a normal family is. The Shibatas are far from perfect, but they do care about each other deep down, despite what they may say at face value. It makes the scene where Jury waits, where they first picked her up, more impactful because it feels as if she'd been taken away from her real family rather than returned to her real one.
This film actually made me remember the tale of Robin Hood a lot. He was a thief but with a good heart. Some could call him a vigilante, but others could simply think him a thief. Though the concept isn't completely the same, it makes you wonder if they were good people. Yes, they stole a lot, and yet they still had the heart to save these children somehow, which is when your moral compass comes along. I'd like to think that despite the circumstances, they were a real family, despite all their flaws, and even taking into mind how the movie ended. Thank you for that, Riley. Moving along, I think we'd like to acknowledge a few marks of Marxism that we saw in this film. Care to enlighten us, Elena?
The Shibata family consists of the father Osamu, mother Nobuya, a grandmother, Aki the older sister, and Shota a young brother. They soon adopt a young girl named Yuri who joins their makeshift family. We soon learn that all of them are not blood related at all. So again, this is a makeshift family and was formed by choice and not by blood ties, which challenges the conventional notion of a standardized traditional family. Marx critiques the traditional family structure for it reinforces class divisions and perpetuates inequality within the family and the society. So, to Marx, the nuclear family helps maintain class divisions by fostering a sense of individualism and private interest. In capital societies, the nuclear family is focused on the well being of its own members, which can reinforce social stratification and inhibit solidarity among the working class. In shoplifters, the alternative family challenges these divisions by emphasizing collective support and care for one another, transcending the limitations imposed by class. So while Marx doesn't necessarily advocate for the complete abolition of the family structure, his critique aims to expose the ways in which the nuclear family is shaped by and perpetuates capital relations of production and social inequality.
And with that, I'd like to end our session for today. Thank you to everyone who listened, and thank you to the group for their responses and their insights. It really opened my eyes, and I hope it opened your eyes and taught you something new today. Thank you. Have a great day.